What's going on, everybody? It's Blandon here from Leverage Addicts. And in this episode, we're going to talk about 5 things holding us back from success in properties. And sitting across me is Andrew. Often we try to encourage each other as well, because we find ourselves perhaps on this level of thinking that might not be the most positive or the best, and try to get each other back in line, remind ourselves, hey, to stop doing these things and, have this positive habit instead, so that we can encourage more success in each other's sort of progress. Because at the end of the day, look, we can always tell somebody to stop doing something, but it's hard to get rid of something unless you actually replace it. And so that's why each of these things that we talk about, we're going to say, hey, you can stop doing this, but instead here's the positive reinforcement or the action that you should take instead. And these are actually what's aligned with our company values. So hopefully you guys can find some nuggets. And so the first one here is stop blaming circumstances and people, because often we blame our situation. Hey, we don't have enough money to do this or that. We don't have enough people supporting us, or like our partner don't want to do it.
Time is always the key one, right?
Not enough time.
That's where it comes down to philosophy of trying to habit stack and focus on the future instead of dwelling on the past, because it's easy to beat yourself up about not achieving things. Time is like one of the key excuses a lot of people have about not being able to achieve. Family commitments, work commitments, there's not much time for other things over and above. But if you put aside, say, 2 hours a day, Monday to Friday, and 3 hours on the weekend each day, you can quite easily add 16 hours worth of working time to your week. Now, 8 to 10 at night, it's working time for me. It's a working time for you, I'm sure. And the weekend, again, the kids go to bed by 8 o'clock at least. You can spend 2 or 3 hours each night. Like, not having enough time is not a good excuse, because there's always hours.
They say it's not about managing your time, but actually managing your priorities. And the habit that we actually try to encourage is daily efforts or habits that's going to align with the legacy. And when you think about legacy, the word, right, inspired by the All Blacks book, Andrew knows that book very well.
Yeah, I mean, you're trying to center your life around principles and values. And if you don't have your own philosophies that you live by, then it's hard to call back on yourself to hold yourself accountable to achieving more, because it's not going to happen. You're not going to rise to the 1% or top 5% of wealth for financial freedom without the extra effort.
Some people are just like, oh, but I don't want to set goals. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. Like, I don't want to, they feel like it's almost like they're being a fool of themselves. But if you don't, the opposite is like, you just get by every day doing the routine of going through life. Or you go, hey, you know what? I'm going to be a bit more proactive. Think about the vision that I have for my family. And if your partner's not supporting you, it's because perhaps you're not selling the vision very well, because it should incorporate them. Like, you put a ring on him, on her, that you should think about how you can accommodate. So it's important that we spend time to go, what is our legacy? Then, okay, now we can prioritize. And suddenly you'll find that actually you can make time to do those things. And then you have the daily habits or effort or the actions that you're taking that's taking you closer to those things.
Not setting goals is an attitude of fear and denial, basically. And you're lacking your own self-accountability, because maybe you're worried you won't achieve your goals and you'll be disappointed again. And blaming others is like big cop-out. Like, there's always things to blame. The economy, the politicians, the lack of capital, but those are just opportunities really for you to demonstrate your skill. And if you don't see opportunity through that negative, you don't yet have the skills that you need, and you need to focus more on doing the homework and learning.
And we find also that just because we have to do marketing as part of the business, but if you put a news headline that is negative, you get a higher open rate on the emails, you get a higher click rate on the videos. Like, people are just wanting to hear bad news, and they're almost celebrating other people's failures. And that's something that we catch ourselves as well. It's like, if you see someone really, really big and you see them fail, you almost have this mini celebration inside, but it's not a good habit to have.
There's a good example in the Herald on stuff today about a family's properties being guaranteed and grouped together for a business loan for one of the family members, and the business failed, and as a result the parents are having to sell their property through mortgagee. The bank's forcing it. We clicked on that link and we all talked about it. There's like a 1% of 1% chance, or like actual, if you look at the whole market of that happening, but now like half the people that are going to borrow money for business or talking about involving parents is going to be scared away from taking that risk or building up on that opportunity. And I guess it's just not being too dragged into that negative cycle of using it as an excuse to not take action. There's always going to be plenty of reasons to sit on the couch and do nothing.
If you think of it like this, right? If another person fails and they fail big, and if their ambition, the thing is they're closer to a much greater success. That's how we should think about it. It's like, oh, well, this person failed now. They're going to achieve greater success because if they reflect on it, if they're going to, still try have that goal that they've set for themselves, they're going to get there. So that leads us to our second bad habit that we try to call each other out on is stop thinking that you know, Andrew, especially because you read a lot more books than me. So often you do know a lot, but actually, how should we approach this?
Well, no matter what you think you know, no one really can accurately predict the future. So with any investment, it's based on the deal opportunity on the day and trying to reduce your risk and understand that because you are investing, there is risk. It's okay to bounce ideas off someone you trust and to be told that you're wrong, and you should encourage it. One thing I've been trying to do a lot lately is instead of giving feedback is at best to try and give advice to say, hey, look, I've noticed that you've said this in the past or done this in the past, or when you do it again in the future, you may want to consider this instead of saying, hey, the way you did that sucked, so that you can have an active conversation. And if you want to get people to poke holes in ideas, you sometimes have to ask. You can put your investment idea in front of someone, and that's one of the advantages of having a mortgage advisor, right? Is you can put a property in front of them and say, hey, what do you think? You can get an unemotional feedback from it very quickly before going through the process of buying it and finding out later it was the wrong one.
And a habit that we try to encourage as well as a company within the team is actually to seek to understand before we take action. Instead of just be like, hey, you can assume that you know, you might just act on it, but instead we should try and understand each other a little bit more, ask the questions.
Yeah, sometimes if someone brings you something, you say, what's the goal? What are you trying to achieve? That should be your starting point. If you're trying to achieve 20% compounded return over 5 years on your capital, is a very different goal than trying to achieve a 30% uplift on purchase and then a hold period until tax is no longer in question. So it's really important to know what your goal is in detail. If your goal is to make money, it's so open-ended, the likelihood of mistake is quite high.
And I like the fact that, with this particular habit, it's like, let's say, you might go meet somebody new and you might perhaps have a conversation with them. And instead of just assuming that you know like what they do or like their knowledge, you can ask a little bit more, just understand exactly what they're doing. And I also like the fact, because if we try to relate it back to properties, often there is this Dunning-Kruger effect, which Andrew introduced to us, to the company. Yeah, if you maybe briefly explain what that means.
Basically, the higher level of confidence people have in a topic is usually, at least in the beginning, inversely correlated with their competence. So what does that mean is it's very common for people to be extremely confident about a subject, for example, like property investing, but they actually have very little base knowledge. So they might have accumulated this confidence by buying a property 10 years ago and there's been a lot of capital gains. So they actually think they know what they're doing. But the reality is they have no idea about yields, about cash on cash return, no idea about development potential, land banking. Like there's an infinite list of topics that they don't know about. They just look at their equity on paper and think they know. And so what we try to do when people come with a lot of confidence into a conversation is show them that there's a lot more to it that they don't really know. And usually there's an epiphany where people realize, okay, actually, I now realize I thought I knew 90% of this property investing thing, but I actually only know 10%.
Because there's so much more, right?
And that's when the real opportunity is born, because once you humble yourself, you realize, okay, I can dedicate 10, 20 hours to learning a lot more about this, and my knowledge base is going to 10x in 2 weeks.
And I definitely encourage anyone listening out there, it's just asking more questions will just allow you to be in that position of humility. It's like, okay, how did this person make decision? What was the process in terms of like how they go through their thinking?
If I said to you just off the top of your head, how many questions are there in a due diligence process to buy like an established business? How many do you think there are?
I wouldn't know. How many are there?
Pick a number, 5, 10, 20?
99.
99, right? And if I said, can you write out all those questions now, would you be able to do it?
Probably not.
Exactly. That's why checklists are so important. I thought, hey, I know how to buy a business. I know how to do due diligence. And I come up with like a list of 20 odd questions myself. And then I start doing more research and I realized there's actually legit 100 or so questions you can ask or research in your due diligence process when you're buying like a small business.
Yeah.
And so should I ever try and do that myself? No, you do the homework and you get somebody to check your list with you and maybe even do some of the work.
And so that actually leads us to the third habit that we should stop each other from doing is stop trying to do everything ourselves. Instead, what we want to do is perhaps set aside time, like communicate others, involve them, build those key relationships that's going to really allow you to leverage not only your time, your money, but your knowledge as well. Often we do. We go in that position. We try to do everything ourselves. And it's understandable because it's like, well, actually, there's so much information online. I can just search it up, can figure it out on my own, and I'll do it myself. I'm going to save a lot of money. Like these guys are like charging $10,000, $20,000 for whatever mentorship they have. But what we try to remind each other on is that, hey, man, like, it's not about saving money. It's a matter of return on investment. That's the mindset that we need to shift towards. Is the return on investment mindset.
I think it's easy for us because you and I have the mindset of working in teams, joint venture partners, business partners, investing with your partner, your wife or your better half. Some people do come to the table thinking that they want to do everything themselves, especially people that want to do the finance themselves, deal with the agent themselves, deal with the lawyer themselves, deal with the tenant themselves, self-manage their own property. It's just so many things to try to be good at. And the thing is, there's really intelligent people that are doing investing like that. But if you have 80% knowledge in property management, 80% knowledge in finance, 80% knowledge in legal, there's a huge gap that you're missing that if you work with someone else, you'll cover that gap. And your risk of failure is so much greater when you're doing things just by yourself.
And I do think we can lean on each other in terms of knowledge, but we still have to put in the effort to go, you know what, I should learn as much as I can.
Well, you have deeper expertise in your specific area of strength. Now, example is when we're investing in properties together, I might work with the agents or lawyers on the contract side of things and you work on the spreadsheets and the design. And because we are doing that in a more regular way, we can get deeper level expertise and we can do things faster in that space. Whereas if I was trying to do the design and the numbers on your behalf, it wouldn't work out because you've got a greater skill set in that area.
And specialization is a way to increase your net worth and your wealth anyway, because if you're able to, say, for example, you're just so refined on a particular skill and it's worth $500 an hour, you should delegate a lot of the $50, $100 task, right? And that is how we could operate when we try to build our own wealth. It's like, okay, well, actually, what is it that I'm really, really good at? Or what should I be really, really good at? And what else can I delegate?
And you can get involved in deals that you might not be invited to if you have a greater level of specialization. And I take the rugby team approach is you got 15 different positions. Everybody's got the same goal, is to have more points at the end of the game than the other team. And everybody should be able to tackle and everyone should be able to pass. But the reality is the skill set of the halfback is very different from the skill set of the prop. The halfback might not be able to consistently hit the ball up in the same way the prop can, and the prop can't pass the ball in the same way as the halfback. You need that combination to have an effective team, and it's the same with investing. If you're trying to do big deals or you're trying to do deals regularly, you need a team, specialists. And sometimes you got to pay, sometimes you can partner. Ultimately, what you're trying to do from the beginning is to become someone with skills that other people want to partner with. And then if you're going to be the lead investor, that's fine. You can find the partners to bring into your deals. But other than that, what you need to do is advertise yourself of having the skill set where other people would want to invite you to participate.
Yeah. And remember, there are 3 Ds to a deal. You got the deal itself, which requires knowledge, understanding where the opportunity is, and then you've got the debt, someone can service the debt, and then you've also got a deposit, you need the capital. So understanding that, see where you are at. If you don't have all 3, well, you better sharpen up on at least one.
We know so many people that don't have all 3, right? And they sit there and they have excuses about not being able to take action. And they might have 2 of the 3 or 2.5 of the 3, but they're just missing that last little piece, and the excuse is not really warranted given that they're just not taking enough action in that area that's missing.
And so the 4th habit here, or the bad habit, is something that we still catch each other out on, because Often we are hard on ourselves, on our results. So it's about stop letting your results get to you. And instead, we should schedule time regularly to reflect. Because there's always two ways to think about this. Because sometimes we're just overjoyed with our results. We're just so proud of it. But the other side of the coin is just, we're just so upset with our result. And it's just like, man, like, why can't I get better results? And upon reflection, often both of these results or both of these feelings come from a place of ego. And so that's why instead of just being upset or like just too proud, we need to actually allocate that time to go, you know what, like what's causing these emotions? And often it comes down to the habits that are missing. Because when I look at somebody else who has the result that I want or they achieved in a short amount of time, very, very rarely it is just luck, because more often than not, it's because they have built different habits, they spent their time differently, they focus on different things. And so that's why it's so important that we try to reflect.
Your reflection is a great place to start, and it doesn't take that long. If you're documenting how you're spending your time, you look at your calendar and you see, hey, is this how I actually want to spend the week? If it's not, then you got to look forward to the week after and try to make sure your calendar reflects what your goals are. And sometimes that means sacrificing, like missing the gym or missing watching your favorite shows. I do have to catch myself when I'm hearing people talking about their favorite TV shows, but they also have disappointment about, you know, their financial progress. Sometimes you've got to give things up. And to also remember that your results, it includes your knowledge base. You've got to remind yourself you can't take action all day, every day. You can't take action sometimes every single week. But if you take the mindset that it's 80% homework, 20% action, and I heard Madara say that just before, it's a great saying. You've got to make sure you do the 80% and you've got to make sure you do the 20%. The homework and the action in a 4-to-1 ratio is a great way to think about it. Homework is looking at listings. Homework is reading books. Homework is watching the relevant YouTube clips. But action is talking to agents, talking to business owners.
Making offers.
Making offers. Yeah, that's really, really important. If you're not making offers, if you have had the goal of increasing your net worth by $1 million or creating like 100,000 of passive income, and you haven't made any offers to buy businesses or properties in the last year, you've got to reflect back on how you're managing your time, and you can't really blame anyone other than yourself for not making offers. Like, you can make a $1 offer on a property. It doesn't cost anything.
Yeah.
And so just, we can laugh about that, and you say, well, if a property is worth $1 million and you offer 700,000 and they come back at 750, that can actually happen.
Offering way more than right in this current market anyway.
In this current market, it's a perfect time when everyone's saying, oh, it's a bad time to buy property. Why? It's dropped in value by so much, and there's people desperate to sell.
So that leads us to the fifth and last habit that we talk about, which is stop trying to let perfect get in the way of just starting, because instead we should ask beyond how this has been done before, instead of just discounting like, I want to do it really, really well, so I'm just not even going to start. We do get into that pitfall, because just to give an example, if you guys are in our property formula workshop, you might hear this, and basically, Joseph, this is for you, because you said it yourself in the chat. You saw this property that was CV on 2.2 million. You saw the same property, you saw an opportunity there, but you didn't make an offer because you said, hey, the CV was too high. So I'm not going to bother. But another person in the team actually made an offer, 1.36. You just jaw drop, because it's like, that's almost impossible, because you're almost letting like that perfection of like, oh, I can't get it on at a really good price to just starting.
An old CV is irrelevant. And in this market, even in a hot market, if you're the only buyer, then your price is negotiable with the vendor, right? At all times. A 40% discount on a CV that's 2 years old is totally reasonable in this market. You'll miss out if you don't make an offer.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I do understand that Joseph is obviously time poor. So time poor, perhaps you could look at, just not try to do everything yourself, right? Again, it's, building maybe one more person in the team. Is it a family member you could pay?
And it's a system, and it might be a VA for $50 a week that does 2 hours of work for you. You have your due diligence clause saved. So basically, you just get your listings, get your criteria coming through, get your VA to draft up an agreement for you and run the numbers for you in a draft format. and you're just digitally signing something. It's only 5-10 minutes.
Expanding on that, actually, we did do that for a while. We did hire a VA who was on $7 New Zealand per hour. It's above 50% above their minimum wage or something. So it's great for them, great for us. And all they did was we gave them a few filters and then some criterias that they need to basically go, okay, well, go through these filters, the criterias that we set, and then just put all of the properties in the spreadsheet, send an email to agent to get all the sales and purchase agreement. And then basically if the spreadsheet got some calculations there to show us, okay, which one is potentially a good piece of land that we can make an offer on and what we should offer. Then what we try to do is hey, we'll tell the VA these ones we want to make an offer on. They draft it up. And then all we do is sign and send it an email and just make a phone call. So then we're saving time significantly because we just got the
becomes
spreadsheet.
a system. And it takes this huge weight off your shoulders because you know that even if you're not making offers that week, you've done the work on the new listings, that there's a reason you're not making offers. It is automating the offer process. And all deals are good deals at the right price with the right terms. All properties are great properties if you get them at the right price with the right terms. It's just understanding how to get to that point. And if you don't know what I'm talking about in terms of great terms, then you haven't done the work yet of understanding how to put together deals.
And I guess coming back to the positive reinforcement or the positive habit that we should be doing is ask beyond how this has been done before. It's not just how has this been done before, but actually asking beyond, what are the potential solution or alternative options? Because there is somebody that has started with very little money and became really successful. So you should understand what they did and then try and apply what they did in this current environment with a bit of your own ideas. There is someone who started with very little knowledge and became very successful. And there is someone who started with very late in their sort of journey and they became really successful. So it's just understanding what they've done and then just go, you know what, how could I actually try and apply some of those lessons in our own situation? Do you have anything else to add on that one?
Just got to make sure you're managing your mindset and your inputs. Don't read the news. Who cares?
So as a summary, the first thing is stop blaming circumstances and people and stop blaming the fact that you don't have time, because it comes down to having the daily efforts that's aligned with your legacy. You have to spend time to build that vision that you can bring your partners in, that you can bring your family in, bring the people around you that are most important to understand this is what's important to you. And these are the things that you should be doing, working towards it. Some accountability there that's going to help. Who can you trust that's not just going to be wanting to see you fail, but really seeing you succeed? Let those people know. Second thing is stop thinking that you know. And that is a lesson of humility, like Andrew said. This is the habit that we should have instead, is seek to understand before we act. Right, really diving into the topic, spending 80% of the time to learn first before you take action. But don't just let those YouTube stop you from actually taking action.
You don't
as well.
need 100 hours of homework before you do your 20 hours of or 25 hours of
That's
action.
Right. Because there's those two extreme now. Sometimes you just watch YouTube for the sake of it, and you feel good, but you don't take any action. So the third one is stop trying to do everything yourself. Really set aside time to look at how you can build a network that's going to allow you to leverage your knowledge, your time, your money, and really build those relationships, invest in them. And the fourth thing is stop letting your results get to you, whether or not it is, you're too proud of it or just always upset about result. Schedule time to reflect. How can you actually build in the habits to get the results that you want? And then very last one is to stop trying to let perfect get in the way of the actual work, and instead ask beyond how this has been done before and see how you can implement those actions into your routine so that you can get the result that you want. And if you want to learn more about properties, and if you find anything that's inspirational, welcome to email us, support@mhu.co.nz, but you can find us on YouTube as well. And then if you guys want to just sort of go, you know what, I need a framework to really build financial freedom, go ahead.
Check out the mortgage lifecycle videos. Can't go wrong.